we sometimes get to choose what presents we want, even though we're not supposed to, but... So it's very alluring because, as I've told people time and time again, there is a beautiful side to evil, and it's a very, very seductive one. It will twist and distort your reasoning and deceive you into believing that these things are indeed Christians, but they are not. Scripture warns us that the deceit of the enemy is so strong it could even deceive us, the elected children of God. So I'm going to leave it up to you, ladies and gentlemen, because let's face it, you are responsible for this knowledge now. It's between you and God, but I would tell you right now, I would get rid of this occult practice as soon as I could, because the longer you allow it to stay in your life, the harder it is for you to get rid of it. And all I can say is right now, just think about all the evidence, review it in the Bible, and judge for yourself. Occult holiday that we shall be examining is Easter. Now, of course, everyone knows the story that somehow the Easter Bunny delivers Easter eggs throughout the world, and for the Christian, this is supposed to be the day of the year in which Christ died. Oh my goodness, we just never seem to get these things right. I mean, I know we just finished Christmas and examining the time of Christ's birth. Now we're going to have to examine the time when he died and everything else in between. You see, Easter itself goes all the way back to the days of Nimrod and his mother Semiramis. Now here's one of the most ancient of all statues that we still have left of Nimrod. And for those of you who wants to do a real scriptural in-depth analysis of this, especially from an academic perspective, in the scriptures, Nimrod is also identified, we believe, as Sargon I. So keep that in mind if you really want to take a good look into the life of Nimrod. And as I said before, his mother was Semiramis. Now, after Nimrod had been put to death by his uncle for starting witchcraft to begin with, his mother, Semiramis, took the whole religion and moved it underground. Well, she was a smart cookie about it. This way, at least, for now, she'd be protected. Now, according to the stories, the ancient stories from the Babylonian Talmud and other sources, and these are still taught in the occult world to this very day, one day, after Semiramis had died, a huge multicolored egg had fallen out of the heavens and landed in the Euphrates River. The egg washed ashore onto a pile of wicker reeds, and out of this egg and her newly reincarnated form was Semiramis as the goddess Easter. Now, a lot of people think it's pronounced Ishtar. I-S-H-T-A-R. People, check the Babylonian Talmud. Once again, it is properly pronounced to this very day, Easter. And accordingly, as the story goes, whoever found Semiramis' egg first, they would receive a blessing from the goddess. Okay, this is the story of how Queen Semiramis came back in her reincarnated form as Easter. Remember, her son, Nimrod, had come back in the form of Tammuz through the act of reincarnation, and she supposedly had the power to do the same thing. Remember, her son was not just a king, but he was a god. Ergo, she was the queen, and since she was the mother of him, she had to have been a goddess. This is, I know it sounds a little silly, but this is how it kind of came about. But anyways, so we now have the resurrection of Easter, Semiramis into Easter, who is now known also, occultically speaking, as the spring goddess. Now, it was at the same time that the Tower of Babylon, if you remember that huge spiraling ziggurat construction that almost reached into the heavens itself had been built, and that there was many temples there. On top of the ziggurat itself would have been the grandest, the most elaborate of all temples, and that would have been the temple of Moloch. Now, Moloch was depicted as a huge, brazen, demonic being with two horns. Some had him with just one horn. And he would have his arms stretched out over a fire pit, and that fire would be going day and night. So those hands were glowing red hot all the time. Now, during this time of the season, once it had been established that Queen Semiramis had come back in the form of Easter, and that she is also the spring goddess, well, the temple priests and priestesses had come up with a huge festival and celebration in honor of their goddess. Some of the things that they would do, they would actually get new robes and new headgear to wear for the ceremony. It showed that they were sacrificing the old for something new, and that they were honoring their goddess by presenting their best. They would bring flowers and candies as offerings to offer up to their goddess, and that the ladies themselves, as I said before, would be wearing new headgear that actually looked very similar to baby bonnets that we use to this very day. And there'd, of course, be this huge procession. The priest would lead the parade. The high priest, of course, would be in front, the priestesses behind. There'd be a lot of dancing, singing, and music, and so on and so forth. Now, if we take a look at this ancient statue, and again, these are very ancient. I mean, there's hardly anything like these things left. But this is the ancient god Easter. You will notice at the top of her head is the crescent moon. Remember, the most ancient symbol for Semiramis is the crescent moon. This is simply her, as Easter, come back as a spring goddess now. She is a fertility goddess. This is supposed to be Semiramis reincarnated. Now, another symbol we need to take a look at is what's known as the Ishtar Gate. It is believed that in front of the very ancient city of Babylon itself, the one that was really rebuilt and reconstructed by Nebuchadnezzar, this is supposed to be a perfect reconstruction of the Ishtar Gate, or the Easter Gate, because this was built in honor of the goddess Easter. And if you remember, the sacred animal totem for the son of Easter, and it's on this wall, is the sacred cow, the calf. And it was the same cow or calf that the children of Israel, when they backslid, once they left Egypt, was worshiping at the bottom of the mountain of Sinai. And as I pointed out before, the sacred egg of Easter has been depicted in many different forms. Two of the most ancient depictographs, one here is the sacred egg of Heliopolis, which the egg story passed into Egypt after it had left Babylon. And this is supposed to be, if we go to, that would be 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 4 through 5, the egg of Astarte. Astarte was just another cultural name for Easter. But this is supposed to be her sacred egg, and notice that there's a calf right there with her. Okay? When we take a look, 1 Kings chapter 11, chapter 11, picking it up in verse 4 and verse 5, it says, "For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods. And his heart was not perfect before the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Ashtaroth is just another variation of the name of Astarte. So you see, even as wise as Solomon was, when he got old and he just didn't have what he used to, he backslid, because he, at this point, combining his wives and concubines, there was more than 1,000 of them. I mean, they was just constantly telling him, we'd like to worship our gods, we want you to worship with us, blah, 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 and, the guy was just too old to put up a fight. He was worn down. Anyways, so I think it's very easy to see where we get Easter from, because when we take a look at this, well, we have all types of all type of Easter things going on to this very day, don't we? We have, for instance, Easter baskets. This one really makes me upset, because Dead Center, we take a good look, well, there's supposed to be the cross of Calvary there. Well, guess what? Easter has absolutely zero, zilch, nada, nothing to do with the death, the burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Absolutely nothing. I once asked a Catholic priest, well, how do you explain the chicken egg and the rabbit? He says, well, you have to understand, as the chicken egg resides in the ground and comes out, and gives life to the chicken, so does, the resurrection give life to Christ. Well, I still didn't get an answer on the bunny rabbit. I think you just missed that one, but that's what I got out of it. Anyways, just to review some of this. The reason, first of all, there is a rabbit in this story is because, remember, Easter, or Semiramis, is considered to be a fertility goddess. Now, if you look at any of the ancient statues of her, such as this one right here, this one, as a matter of fact, happens to be another cultural statue of Semiramis. This one is Diana of Ephesus. You'll notice that she is a many-breasted goddess here. The reason, because she is a fertility goddess. That's why, symbolically speaking, they chose the egg to represent her, because the bunny is the fastest procreating creature on God's earth. I mean, you look at the poor thing, and it's delivering more rabbits and more rabbits just like that. That's why the bunny was chosen for the Easter story, because it represented, symbolically speaking, the fertility goddess. In this case, this would be Diana. But, of course, counterculturally speaking, there's others. As I said, Semiramis, she'd be known as Easter, Astarte, Ashtaroth, Diana, and so on and so forth. And the Easter bunny is quite an interesting fellow in and of itself, because with this particular picture that I have, I could not resist bringing this one. I mean, the poor bunny looks as shocked as I am about Barack Obama, because at this point, if you notice, I did not say president, because I don't even know if the guy is legal or not. As far as I know, he's illegal. But that's another story in itself. I mean, but this poor Easter bunny looks about as shocked about it as I do. Now, of course, there would be Easter eggs in this story. Remember, it was that huge multicolored egg that fell out of the heavens and landed in the Euphrates River, washed onto a pile of Easter, on a pile of wicker reeds, and out of it came Semiramis. Now, this is where we got the Easter basket from, was from these wicker reeds. The Easter eggs that we have nowadays came from the multicolored egg of Semiramis or Easter. Take a look at this egg. This egg, which was made in